all of these things you may have learned before. Some might be brand new. You were supposed to learn them all last week, I think with the exception of standard deviation. All right, standard deviation wasn't in your notes last week. It was MAD, mean absolute deviation, which is pretty similar. They go very hand in hand, although they are different measurements. So standard deviation, I'd be really surprised if anyone got that by hand. But the other stuff you should hopefully be able to get by hand. Table 3, can you tell me the mean for set A? Or can you tell me how to find the mean of any set of data? You got 5 for the mean. Okay, anyone get something different for the mean on set A? Everyone got 5 or didn't get it at all? Okay, if I remember correctly, it is 5, but we will verify with the calculator here shortly. But how do you find the mean of any data set? Abram?
It all under divided by how many numbers are in the set.
Okay, so you add up all the numbers, take the sum of all the numbers, and then you divide by your number of data points. However many numbers you added together. Let's see. Quick math, 25 is the sum. Divided by 5 is 5, so that is correct. What's another word for mean? Average, good.
Attention students, if you have more free lunch, it is now time for you to go to.
So he tells you like a typical value in a data set. So mean slash average, like if you hear like the average temperature is 100 degrees, that means for most of the day, it's around 100 degrees. Does it mean that for every second of the day, it's 100 degrees? No, it's just like the typical value. Median, table 4, what's the median of this data set?
5.
It is 5. Anyone think it is, or at least thought it was 4? Okay, if you thought it was 4, you made a really common mistake, which is you just went like left, right, until you got a middle without putting the numbers in order first. The numbers have to be least to greatest. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 would be least to greatest. And then you go left, right, until you get a middle number. Or if you have 2 numbers in the middle, then you average them, but only have 1 number in the middle. I should expect that when I have an odd number of data points. So there you go. The median is 5. IQR, table 5. What is the IQR? Can you tell me what IQR stands for? Interquartile range. Now, does anyone in here know how to find like just normal range of any data set? Yes. So normal range, like when it says what's the range of the data set, you should be thinking of a subtraction problem. It's your maximum minus your minimum. So like my range for this one would be 7 minus 3, which is 4. My data spreads out over 4. Interquartile range is similar, except for that it wants you to find the range of your quartiles. So your upper quartile minus your lower quartile. And that came up when we were doing box plots. So we know my median is 5. We have to find that first. That's our Q2 that divides our data in our lower and our upper half. Let's look at the upper half first. Now I only have 2 numbers. So like I'm trying to find the middle of my upper half. What's the middle way between 6 and 7?
6.5.
So my Q3 is 6.5. From that, I'm going to subtract my Q1. So here's my lower half of data, only 2 numbers again. average them. That's really what we did over here. 6 plus 7 is 13. 13 divided by 2 is 6.5. But then what's the halfway point between 3 and 4? So then 6.5 minus 3.5 will give me my IQR, which 6.5 minus 3.5 is just 3. So that tells me my middle 50% of my data is separated by about 3 on average. All right, and standard deviation, I don't expect you to know how to do right now. I've never taught that to you yet. I'm not going to do that to you next week. But I'll tell you how to find it with graphing technology today. It is really similar to finding the MAD. And if you remember from last week, finding the MAD was a long process. You would have to find the mean of your data, find the absolute deviation of each data point, and then average that. Like, it's a long process. I'm going to show you how to do it with graphing technology because that's the purpose of it today. So on your note sheet, you do have space to write down in your own words, like how to find all of these things. I'm not necessarily going to write steps down for you. I don't know if you're anything like me, but when I'm learning technology, I just have to be shown it. Okay, I don't like read steps and like, I don't know, follow them necessarily. I just need to be shown. You guys are the up and coming generation. You guys should be pretty good with technology. When you take tests, if you notice, like on your first quiz, for example, or I can't remember if you had it, because you might not have needed it, but on all your quizzes and all your unit tests, you will have access to desmos.com. So DESMOS. If you want to take out like your Chromebook and kind of copy what I'm doing, but you still need to pay attention to the screen. Because I'm going to show you how to find all of this, including the MAD, really easily. Okay. But you could maybe even for now, just kind of jot down some notes to yourself for how to use Desmos. I did mention like you should invest in your own graphing calculator so that you can use it during state testing. You do not get Desmos for your 9th grade state testing, unfortunately. So that's why I highly recommend you get your own graphing calculator and learn how to use it. YouTube is free. Just type in TI-84 or whatever calculator you have and pull it up. It'll tell you exactly how to find all these things as well. But for Desmos, what you have to do is, I usually will use the letter D for data. But really you should be able to use almost any letter. Some letters like E just don't work, so don't use letters like that, but most others will work. And you can, when you're using Desmos, just like type it in. But D for data is what I usually use. And then it'll be equals a bracket. So kind of like a parentheses, but not, it's a bracket. And you would then type in your data set. So my data set, we'll start with the smaller one, and it doesn't have to be in any particular order. You could put it in numerical order if you want, but you don't really need to when you're using the graphing calculator. And when you're done, you could close the bracket. Usually if I click out of it, it does it already. And then in a different cell, I can ask my graphing calculator to do a bunch of different stuff. Probably it might be easier for you to hit this functions menu. And we're on the statistics unit, so scroll to where it says statistics, and look, a lot of these words you recognize, like mean. And then since I already have my data in another cell, I just have to, like, in this parentheses, put the letter that I named my data, and it tells me my mean without me doing anything, without me memorizing any formula. Now, do I think you necessarily should just rely on technology? No, because like there are conceptual questions that require you to know that you need to add up the numbers before dividing by the number of numbers, but this can help you check your answer. and save you time on the test. So then there's other things in that menu too. So like median, right there. What else? IQR is not here. It does have quartile here though. Then I'll show you an even easier way. If I do quartile, my data set, notice nothing pops up yet. I have to specify what quartile I want. Like, do I want the first quartile, the second, third? So I have to put like comma 1 if I want the first quartile. That's the same thing we got by hand. 2, if you want just the median overall, but there's also a median button, so I'm not sure if you want to do that. And then your third quartile. So there's no IQR button. I think on other graphing calculators, you might have an IQR setting, but you would have to know IQR is Q3 minus Q1. But this could easily identify it. Things like the MAD are on here too. MAD. And then data set B. So that I didn't necessarily want to spend class time. It's also like a shorter day than normal. I didn't want to spend class time doing it by hand because you already saw that once in lesson 5. And even if you didn't understand it in lesson 5, all you really have to do now is understand how to use a graphing calculator. Same with standard deviation. Standard deviation is in here. Notice there's 2, and I've been told to use standard deviation P for this unit, but I'll be honest with you, I always forget, and I imagine that you guys might always forget which one of these to use too. I always say just type in both and see which one matches your answers. If you're told to put it in like multiple choice format. Notice that the answers are very close to each other anyway. One is like standard deviation and the other one's standard deviation of the population. But as you can see, the numbers are pretty close. And I used to have to teach my students how to find standard deviation by hand. It would literally take the entire hour just to find this one measurement and like several pages of a packet. We don't even bother doing that anymore because in the real world, if you are like a statistician, you would just use a calculator or a computer to tell you these things. Okay, so using what I just showed you, I want you to verify your answers for this data set, because you might have already gotten some of the values by hand already. I want you to verify your data set B values using your graphing technology. I want everyone to try, because you learn better when you're actually the one doing it. Tell me if I'm trying to find the mean with Desmos. So I just cleared my Desmos screen. What's the very first thing I need to do? Type my data set in. So my data set is 125, 134, 150, 118, 150, and 143, but nothing's showing up. So how do I make it tell me stuff? What do I need to do even before I type in my data? I have to put D or really any other letter. D and then what? And then what? After the equal sign? Okay, we know what the shape is. The bracket. Okay, good. Once it says like blank element list, that'll tell you like 6 data points in your list, which I do have 6 data points in my list. Maybe where I gave you room to write steps, make sure you put something to that effect. Because if you forget on your quiz, for example, you will have another quiz this week on lessons 5 through 9. If you forget, I can't necessarily tell you during the quiz. So you write it yourself. You do get to use your own notes during the quiz. All right, now table 7. What do I have to do next in order to make it tell me the mean? Okay, good. So you could find it in the little menu I showed you. but you could also just type it. So let me do it again. So you see how it's like in italic, but as soon as I type in something it recognizes, it goes back to like non-italic font. Then you put a parentheses and whatever you called your data set. So like if I use a different letter for my data set, like A, it doesn't know what to do because I don't have a data set D anymore. But if I put what I actually named it, I'd get about 136.6 repeating. Okay, good. I should probably write that down, but I don't want to run out of time. So I'm going to keep going. So make sure you're correcting things if you are incorrect. Now for median, same thing. Find it in our little functions tab or type it in. Table 8, what is my median for this data set?
138.5.
All right, let's see if that is correct. And it is. Without me having to put them in numerical order, without me having to do any other math or know any other vocabulary, I just have to know how to use my graphing calculator. Table 9, can you confirm the IQR for me? Or can you tell me what any of the quartiles are? So IQR is a little bit tricky because if I just type in IQR, it doesn't recognize that as a function. So I would have to know the formula for IQR. Class, what's the formula for IQR? Like star, highlight, make a flashcard, something, you need to know that. That's like the one thing the calculator won't directly tell you, but it can tell you your quartiles, like I showed you earlier. And then here's something else that I wanted to show you that I'm going to show you now that I haven't yet. Someone in the past showed me that you could just type in stats and see it becomes like a function it recognizes. Parentheses, whatever you called your data set, and it pulls up this information. Does anyone recognize what this information is used for? Minimum, Q1, median, Q3, and maximum. What does that create? A box plot. It's our 5-number summary. So stats, you would have to remember that function. I would not be able to tell you during the test. Can help you make your box plots by telling you your 5-number summary. And it also, I think, is easier to identify your quartiles this way than the other way I showed you just a few minutes ago. But then you have to remember those other things. Whereas here, you just type in stats, know that IQR is Q3 minus Q1. What's 150 minus 125? 25 is my IQR. Okay? Questions on that? Yes? Well, did you put in the parentheses after stats? Did you put in your data set with me? But if you haven't already, find the standard deviation. That's what I'm gonna ask for next. Oh, don't be tough. And also you put B, but I think you called your calculator. So yeah, it has to match whatever you call your data set. If I change this letter to A, then I need to change this to A in order for it to tell me for that data set. Table 9, can you tell me the standard deviation? Okay, let's see. And remember, I never really know which one to use, so I always just put both. I mean, I know now they tell me I should use standard deviation P, but I still will just type in both. And I would pick the one that matches my answer on the test. So they are pretty close to each other regardless. They're both near the number 13. So When you have multiple options, pick the one that matches. But standard deviation and IQR measure how spread out your data is. So we're saying on average, this data is spread out about 12 or 13. IQR is specifically like the middle part of your data. The middle 50% of your data is spread out by 25. That's why they can be different. In the future, you'll know which one to use and which one to not use. But they're both there. And then, of course, you could identify the MAD too. That's really easy. Type MAD, parentheses, whatever you call your data set, and you're good. Now, here's your practice. You don't have your own separate practice in Schoology. It's just embedded in your notes. So on the back, this is like your practice. It'll be checked when I do your binder check, so no need to turn it in, just don't lose it. Save it till the end of the unit. We have our binder check next Friday. Not this Friday, next Friday. Now, listen. I want you to be able to effectively do this and be able to know that you're right. Like, I don't want you to just practice the wrong way. So as you go, you should check your answers. I do have the key back there on the whiteboard. I think I also have it in Schoology too. But listen, because I know exactly what you're thinking. If you just copy it and you get 100% in the homework category, guess like how much that affects your grade? 10%. You need more than a 10% to pass the class, right? What do you need to pass the class? 60%, a 59.45% to be exact. So cheating on all your homework does nothing for you. Like, I could give you the answers. It does absolutely nothing for you. You would not be able to cheat on a quiz or test. So like, just don't cheat on your homework. Use it for what it's intended for, which is practice. I do have the answers back there. You can take a look, no pictures. But I think I also even have them in Schoology already. The purpose is not for you to just blindly copy the answers. It's so you can practice and know you're doing it right. Okay, so do what it is intended for. You have about 5 minutes left in class to do what you can, and then the rest will be homework. We'll probably go over the answers tomorrow. So try to have them done before you walk in tomorrow. Questions, comments, concerns? Okay, no packing up or lining up. Maybe at 11:59, you can pack up, that's fine, but don't pack up sooner than that. What's the word?